we have understood the concept of classes and objects. Okay, let's go ahead and create a new class in Python. So this is where the interesting part starts actually. Okay, last session we created one sample class dog. Okay, and to create a class, okay, we use the keyword class, then follow it up with the name of the class. You have to keep in mind that the first letter of the name of the class needs to be capital. Okay, so we created class with the name dog. Okay, and I used that D. Okay, for dog capital. Okay, the first letter was capital. Okay, let's create a new class, and then class name is phone. P is capital. Okay, this has to be capital. Then colon. Now let's create two methods inside this class. Okay, first method is make a call. So use def keyword to define a method, make call, and use self. We'll discuss this self, okay, in detail today. And here we can print some text, print making a call, making a call. Define one more method. Let's name it play game. Okay, we can use phone for playing game also. Use self parameter and print. Let's print playing game. Okay, so the first method is make call. Inside the parenthesis we have given a parameter which is self. So what exactly is this? Well, this you can consider to be a referencing call. Okay, we can use this for referencing attributes and methods that we will discuss, okay, in great detail later on. In Python, this self represents the specific instance of the class, okay, you are currently working with. So it binds the attributes and methods of your class to a particular object, allowing different objects of the same class to hold completely different data. Okay, if you are working with suppose two objects, okay, phone 1, phone 2, then phone 1 object will have its own data, phone 2 will have its own data. Okay, so self, this parameter gives you access to the object specific attributes and methods. Okay, so let's just keep in mind that and as and when we will work with this self keyword, okay, you will get to know more about it. And with the help of this method here, okay, we are printing, making a call, and similarly we have created another method, okay, play game, and we are printing here playing game, right? So run this cell. So we have created a class named phone, and we have defined two functions inside it. So this is done. Now that we have user defined data type, actually when you define a class, you define a user defined data type. Now it is time to go ahead and create an object of this user defined data type phone. So phone1 equals to phone. So here we are instantiating an object of phone class. Okay, we are using phone as a data type. This is user defined data type. So this is how we create an instance of a class. Okay, we use a variable here, okay, and a variable here, any variable, and then we use the class name, okay, followed uh, by parenthesis. Okay, if there is a parameterized constructor, you can pass values also for those parameters. So we have created an object of phone, which is phone1. This is the object of this phone class. Since we have an object of this class, we can go ahead and invoke the methods, okay, which are present inside this class. Okay, make call and play game. Execute this cell. Now we can use phone1, use dot operator. Uh, Actually, for calling a method, we have to use the dot operator. So all we do is we write the name of the object, the phone1, and then put a dot operator, and then give the name of the method, okay, that you want to invoke. So we want to call make call. Make call is a function, okay, and this make call is a parameterless function. It has only one parameter self, okay, and passing value for this parameter explicitly is not required. Run this cell. So making a call, okay, phone1 dot make call, we invoked make call, and this make call printed making a call, right? Similarly, we can call phone1 dot play game, playing game, okay, we are getting this output from this print statement. So this is how we can create a class, okay, then create an object of that class, and then call the methods with the help of that object, okay, which we have created. Now we'll discuss how to add parameters to a class method. Okay, we will see how to set and return attribute values, okay, in a class. So suppose we want to assign a color, a cost to phone data type. So this phone is like a data type, okay, this phone class. So here let's accept or define one more method, okay, set color, def set color, accept self, and one more parameter, color, colon, and then we can use this self, this first parameter, okay, for setting an attribute. So use self dot, okay, we want to create an attribute color, and we want to set that attribute to the value of this parameter color. So self dot color equals to color. So this color is this parameter, this parameter. So whatever value we will receive in this color, okay, we are assigning that value to this color attribute of self, and self refers to what? It refers to the current object. Okay, let's define one more method. Okay, so to assign cost to the phone, use a def keyword, set cost, and use self parameter and one more parameter cost, self dot cost attribute. So this cost is attribute, okay, we are creating this attribute, and let's set this attribute to cost. Okay, so this parameter. Okay, so this is how you can assign color and cost to a phone object, okay, using these two methods. So let's define two more methods, okay, to return values of these two attributes. Self is not a keyword actually, but this is naming convention. Okay, in place of self you can use any name here. I'll show you that. But developers, okay, most commonly use self here, right? This self is not a keyword. This is just a parameter, a name actually. And in this self parameter, we always receive the reference of the object. So in place of self, Okay, we can use anything. Okay, that I will show you. But keep in mind that this self is not a keyword, right? But this is very important. This first parameter is very important. This self is very important. So whatever name you are using in place of self is very important. Yes, abc.cost, abc.color will work. Which statement, which method? Second cell, okay. It will create an object actually. So this part, this highlighted part will create an object, and reference of that object will be assigned to phone one. It means because object is always created in RAM. Okay, so you need a name to access that object. So it will create an object in RAM, and you can use this name to access that object. So this phone one is just name of the object, right? So it will create object, this phone, then parenthesis, it will create an object, and after you have created object, okay, then you can use that object for invoking methods like we are doing here. Phone1 dot make call, phone1 dot play game. Okay, now let's define two more methods, so to return values of these attributes. So let's define def, let's name it uh, show color, and use self here. Okay, and use return statement. Return self dot color. Now define one more method to return value of cost. Def show cost, and use self parameter. Return self dot cost. Okay, so we have defined two more methods, two more functions. Okay, show color, and it is returning the color of the current object, and show cost, okay, it will return the cost of the current object. Okay, self means current object. Okay, self always refers to the current object. So let's run this cell. Okay, keep in mind all the method that you create need to have this self parameter. Okay, you can use anything here, but we are using self. Okay, because we can access this color and cost which we are creating here. Okay, using this parameter only. So we need to have this self as a parameter. Okay, in every method. Okay, where we want to access attributes. So we have successfully created this class. Okay, now run this cell. Okay, to create an object of this class, to instantiate an object of this new class. Okay, so we have created this object of this class, and then here let's add one cell, and phone1 dot set color, and pass a color as a parameter. Okay, this the string, that the color that you will pass, okay, will be received in second parameter color. So let's pass black. Okay, and add one more cell, phone1 dot set cost. Okay, so set cost to 5,000. Okay, my budget is 5,000. Okay, so after calling set color and set cost, create two more cells, phone1 dot show color. Okay, we are not passing anything. Okay, so reference of the current object is implicitly passed in this parameter, self parameter. Okay, so passing anything from here is not required. Run this cell and see, show color returned what? Black. We set black. So actually we invoked set color, we passed black, set color. So this black received in color, and the value of color, which is black, okay, assigned to the color attribute of self. All right, and set cost invocation, this 5,000 received in cost. Okay, and cost, value of cost parameter, which is 5,000, is assigned to the cost attribute of self. Now, this show color return what? Self dot color. Self means the current object, and in this case the current object is phone 1. So this self dot color returned what? The color of phone 1, which is black. Okay, now phone 1 dot show cost. So this show cost, okay, it will return what? It will return the cost of the current object, and current object is phone 1. Run this cell. So the cost of phone 1 is 5,000. So color is black and cost is 5,000. Okay, so currently we are working with one object, and let's go ahead and invoke the last two methods also, make call and play game. So run this cell, making a call, run this cell, and playing game. Okay, so now this is how actually you can define methods to set attributes. Okay, use self parameter to set attributes and self parameter to return values of attributes. Right, we will discuss this self in more detail, okay, in this session. Now we will discuss constructor. Okay, so whenever we are working in object oriented programming, okay, we can use constructor, and constructor is always used, okay, to set attributes, initialize properties, okay, at the time of instantiation. So here we created an object of phone, okay, and then we set color and cost, okay, in separate statements, separate method invocations. But if you want this color and this cost to be set when you are creating an object, okay, in that case you can use constructor. So if you want attribute values to be set when you are creating an object, in that case you can use constructor, and constructor is automatically called. Okay, we don't call constructor explicitly. So let's create new class here. Class my number. Okay, we are creating a new class. Construct, now to define constructor, okay, use def keyword, def. Okay, and then two underscores, then use init, two more underscores, okay, and then parenthesis, use self, okay, self to reference the current object, and then let's use one parameter. Okay, we are creating a simple class, and use colon here, use colon. Now use self to refer to the current object dot value equals to value. Okay, so we are setting this value, whatever value will be received in this value, okay, we are assigning that value to the value attribute of self. Okay, and self refers to what? The current object. Okay, now create one more method, def, and let's name it show value, and use self parameter, return self dot value. Okay, so here we are in this function. In this function, we are trying to access the value which we are setting here in the constructor, right? So from here we will return the value of this value attribute. This value is attribute, okay, which we are accessing using dot operator. So self dot value. So dot value, value is attribute. Now run this cell, and in next cell, now in next cell, actually in this class definition, okay, so this init method is the, it is automatically called, okay, when object is created. This is a constructor actually, and this self parameter, this first parameter, this parameter, it represents the newly created object. This is a constructor, Okay, so in constructor it represents what? It represents the newly created object, and it is used to initialize class attributes, its attributes. Okay, so here we are using this self in this constructor, okay, to initialize this value, okay, to set value to the value of this value parameter, right? And then here we are using the same attribute, okay, to return the value that we have already set here in this constructor. Okay, now here let's create an object. To create an object, we can use obj1 equal to and use class name. Class name is my number. Okay, and it has one parameter, right? So here you can pass any number from here. So let's pass 25. Okay, so now we are creating an object of this class my number, and passing a number. While creating an object, here we are creating an object. Okay, similar to this. Okay, we created object of phone. Okay, but we didn't pass anything here. But now we are passing 25, right? And then we will invoke show value method, the show value method of this class. So run this cell. Okay, so we have created an object of my number. Object is obj1, and then obj1 dot show value, called show value function. Okay, this method, and run this cell. Now see, its value is 25. So here in this case, in case of phone, we created object, then we invoked set color, set cost to set two attributes, and then we invoked show color, show cost, okay, to return values. But here we are not setting this value explicitly. We simply pass 25, okay, when we are creating this object. Correct? So this 25 received in value, value of value, set assigned to the value attribute of self, new attribute created, and here when we are calling show value, okay, this show value returned the value of this value attribute, which is 25. Right? So this is how you can use constructor. And about the self parameters reference to the current object. So this self parameter, okay, it reference to the current object of a class. So here current object, in this case current object is what? Obj1. So when you are creating this object, in this case the current object is the object which is being created, right? And it is used to access the attributes and methods, okay, that belong to that object. Okay, so when you create an object, then all the attributes, okay, that belong to that object and method that belong to that object, okay, you can access those attributes and methods, okay, using this self. And when a method is called using an object like we are calling here, okay, we are calling show value on obj1. We are invoking show value on obj1. Python automatically passes, okay, the that object as the first argument to the method. So here we are not passing anything, but Python automatically passes or object reference, okay, to this self. Okay, so the self will receive what? It will receive the reference of obj1. Okay, and conventionally we the this name is convention actually. Okay, so you can use anything here. Okay, that we will discuss a little later. So what is the purpose of self in Python? Okay, the self parameter helps what? Python identify the object on which a method is called. So Python using this self, Python identifies what? The object on which we are calling a method. Okay, so here we are calling show value. So here this self will tell Python, okay, which object we are calling this show value. So this self will tell that we are calling show value on obj1, right? And in this case, if you see here obj1 dot my number 25, okay, it creates an object named obj1, and inside this class definition this init is automatically called, right? And this self refers to what? In this case, it refers to obj1. And self dot value, this stores 25 in the object's value attribute. So when obj1 dot uh, this show value is called, okay, self again refers to what? It again refers to the obj1 because we are calling show value on obj1. So therefore, the self dot value accesses what? The value 25 and return we are getting 25 here, right? So it ensures that each object can access and maintain its own data independently. So if you are working with many objects, multiple objects, obj1, obj2, obj3, obj10, okay, then all objects, every object will have its own set of attributes and methods, right? So you every object will maintain its own data independently. So when a method is invoked through an object, Python automatically passes what? The object as a self, right? So I'm repeating this statement again and again, that Python automatically passes the reference of object, okay, as a self, which we can receive in first parameter, which we are using. In our case, we are using self. Okay. Now let's understand uh, self in constructor. So self in constructor is the purpose of self in constructor is same, okay, as in the method. So here self refers to what? It refers to the newly created object. Okay, when actually this constructor is called when object is being created. So it refers to the newly created object, right? Okay, so we can create now. Let's copy this code. I'm copying it, right, and paste here. Class phone, and let's define a constructor in this class. Okay, for defining constructor, use def keyword, two underscores, init, two underscores again, and then use self parameter color. We have two attributes, color and cost. Okay, color and cost and colon. Okay, and self dot color equals to set color to value of color, whatever is the value, okay, you are receiving this color parameter, and then self dot cost equals to cost. Okay, here we are assigning the value of cost to this new attribute cost. Okay, and then show color, and show color we can show the value of color, and show cost we can show the value of cost. Okay, run the cell. Now in next cell, create an object of this class. Okay, let's create phone1 equals to phone. We are creating an object of phone, but now we can pass two values, okay, for these two parameters. Okay, we don't pass any value explicitly for the first parameter self. Okay, for this parameter, reference of the current object is automatically passed. Okay, so we need to pass now value for color and cost. So here we can pass color value for the second parameter color. So let's pass blue, and second parameter is cost. Okay, 7,500. Okay, pass any value here, run the cell. So we have created a new object and passed two values, blue and 7,500. So blue will be received in color, 7,500 will be received in cost, and then this self dot color will, this color attribute will be set to the value of color, which is blue. Self dot cost, this cost attribute will be set to the value of cost, which is 7,500. And then here phone1 dot show color. Okay, and show color has one parameter self, and we don't need to pass any value explicitly for self. The reference of the object will be, in this case, the object is phone1. So reference of phone1 will be passed automatically, okay, to self. Okay, and then self dot color will give you the color of phone1. So run this cell, and the color of phone1 is blue. We passed blue from here, right? And phone1 dot show cost. Show cost. This show cost, okay, it will return the value of this cost attribute, and which is 7500. We passed 7500 from here, right? So this is how you can use constructor, okay, to initialize attributes of a class, okay, to some values, right? In this show color here, this self an instance method. This is instance method actually, because we are calling this show color on phone1. Okay, the instance method use self to access the attributes. Okay, we are accessing color here actually, and other methods of the object that calls the method. Okay, so we always use this self to access attributes and methods of the class, right? So uh, the self keyword is very important. Not keyword actually, self is very important. This parameter is important. Okay, so now we will discuss this in more detail actually. Okay, so we will try to create multiple objects. Okay, let's create one more object, phone. We are creating one more phone object, and this time let's change this color to black or gray. Okay, and cost is 10,500. This is phone 2. Okay, we are creating second object. Okay, phone 1 is already there. Now we are creating phone 2. Run this cell, and now phone, let's call phone 1 and phone 2. Phone 1 dot show color, phone 1 dot show cost. So if you see here, it is blue. Phone 1 color is blue. Phone 1 cost is 7,500. Phone 2 dot show color, it is gray. So phone 2, color of phone 2 is gray. Color of phone 1 is blue. Create one more cell. Phone 2 dot show cost, and it is 10,500. Okay, so now these two objects are maintaining their data independently, right? Okay, so this is how you can create multiple instances and maintain, okay, their data independently, right? And keep in mind that self is not a keyword. Okay, so let me show you this, that self is not a keyword. So here in place of self, actually it is simply a naming convention, okay, that Python developers follow to represent the current object. Although you can use any valid parameter name here, okay, using self makes the code easier to read and understand. Okay, in C++, in C sharp, in Java, we always use this keyword, okay, to refer to the current object. So we use this keyword in C++, VC++, C sharp, right? So here we use self. This is convention, but you can use, okay, any valid name here. So let's replace all occurrences of self with any name that you want to use. Let's use this, okay, and replace this self with this, every occurrence of this, right? And then show color, use this show cost, we are replacing self with this, and in show color now access this color on this because we don't have self name here. Okay, we have this now. Use this dot cost. Okay, and you can replace this everywhere. This, this, okay, and this, this. Okay, so it will refer to what? This object. This object means current object, the object you are currently working with. Run this cell. Okay, so we have created this class. Now let's create phone 1. Control enter. We have created phone 1. Okay, there is no issue. Phone 1 dot show color, it is blue. Show cost 7,500. Create phone 2. Okay, and phone 2 dot show color, it is gray, and phone 2 dot show cost, it is 10,500. And now we are not using self, we are using this. Okay, but we should always use self. Okay, because this self makes the code easier to read and understand, right? So you can use anything. Okay, you can use even here ABC also. Right here you can use ABC. ABC dot here. I'm replacing ABC only in this constructor, right? Not everywhere. Run this cell. Create object. Show color, it is blue, and cost is 7,500, right? But we should always use self. Self and self, right? Now replace every occurrence of the string that you have used here, okay, with self, and run this cell and create first object. It is blue, color is blue, and its cost is 7,500, right? So this is how you can use self, okay, to refer to the current object. And now let's check that self refers to the current object. Okay, you can verify it actually. So self parameter refers to the current object that calls a method, and it allows Python to identify and work with the attributes and methods of that specific object, phone 1, phone 2. Okay, and to check this, let's create here. Let's create a new class. Class. Let's call it car. Class car. Define a constructor underscore underscore init double underscore and self parameter. And in this constructor, let's print the ID of self. Print. Okay, you can use fstring or you can use format method. Here let's use format. ID of the object, ID of the object is create placeholder dot format, and then pass ID of ID is a function actually. So ID of self. Okay, so it will print the ID of self, and then create one more function, def show ID. Show ID, and use self parameter, and let's use the same print statement here. Okay, ID of the object is this. Okay, so the ID function returns a unique integer identifier. Okay, this ID function, it returns a unique integer identifier for a specified object. Okay, so we will create object, so it will return the ID of that object, the identifier for that object, okay, which remains constant, okay, throughout that object's lifetime. Okay, the ID of object, okay, never change. And this unique integer corresponds directly to the memory address, okay, where the object is stored. So run this cell, create one more cell, and here let's create an object of this class. So we are creating first car, car1, car. Okay, so now see, so this constructor printed the ID of this object self, right? I said in constructor this self refers to the newly created object, okay, new object. So the ID of this object is, this object self is this, okay. Now let's create car2, create object, run this cell, and this is, now see, unique identifier. So this is the ID of car2. This is the unique identifier of car1. Okay. Now what we can do is we can call show ID. So car1 dot show ID. Run this cell and see the show ID returned the same ID. It is ending with 52928, 52928, right? So here in show ID, this self is referencing the same object whose ID is this. Whose ID is this. So these two IDs are same, right? So it is referencing the same object. Car2 dot show ID. Run this cell and see now this ID is same. So in show ID, this self is referencing the same object, okay, which created here, okay, when this constructor executed, this invoked, right? And if you want to check the ID of car1 and car2, so here you can write ID of car1. Now we are actually checking the ID of car1, okay. Run this cell and see this ID, it is ending with 52928. 52928. So the reference ID, unique identifier of this car1 is same as that of this object. Okay, so whenever you will work with car1, okay, you are working with the object whose ID is this, right? So self always refers to what? An object whose ID is specific to an object. And if you want to check the ID of car2, car2, now see, this is, okay, so this is the ID of car2. This is the ID of car2. And if you see, this is the same ID here. So here car2 is having the reference of this object, right? And every time you will work with car2, okay, you will work with the object whose ID is this, right? So here, because both the IDs, here ID of car1, here, and ID of this object, okay, because these addresses or these values are same, it shows that the self refers to the object that invoked the method, right? And you can also use this self to modify, okay, object attributes, right? So let's create one more class, define one more class, class counter colon, and let's define a constructor def underscore underscore and use self, okay, to receive reference of the current object, and use one parameter value, and let's set it to 0. This is default parameter, right? Its default value is 0. And here use self keyword dot count. So we are setting the count attribute right here, and set count to value parameter. Okay, its default value is 0. So if you don't pass any value for this parameter, the default value will be 0. This is default parameter, right? And here let's define one more function, def increment accept self. Okay, and in this increment function, use self and access count attribute. This attribute self.count addition assignment 1. So this is increment, so we are adding 1 to the current value of count. Okay, so whatever is the current value of count, 1 will be added, okay, to that value. Define one more method, one more function, def, and let's name it decrement. Use self parameter, and in this parameter, okay, in this function, use self dot count attribute and use subtraction assignment. Okay, subtract 1. Okay, decrement the current value by 1, and define one more function, def, let's name it get current. Okay, so we will use this function to return the current value of count attribute. Use self, and here return self dot count. So we are returning the current value of count. Okay, run this cell. Okay, we have executed this cell. It means we have created a new class, counter. Now create an object of counter. Counter equals to counter, and we are not passing any value. If you don't pass any value, the default value 0 will be used. This 0 will be assigned to the count attribute of this class. Okay, run this cell. So we have created an object of this class. Okay, object is counter. Now using this object, okay, we can invoke this get counter function. So counter dot get counter, run this cell, and see it is showing the current value of count. Okay, this get current return the current value of count. Okay, because in constructor we set count to the value of count, and default value is 0. We didn't pass anything here, so default value 0 assigned to count, and we are getting 0 here. Okay, in from get current. Now counter dot, okay, call increment function and counter dot, oh, it's typo. Okay, run this cell, and current value is 1. Okay, now execute this cell 4 more times. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and the current value is 5. Okay, we have invoked increment 5 times, so current value is 5. Now invoke decrement 2 times. 1, 2. Okay, now check the current value, run this cell, and it is 3, right? So get current returns what? It is actually we invoked the increment 5 times. We checked the current value, it was 5. Okay, then we invoked decrement 2 times, and then we checked the value again, and now it is 3. So after 5 increments and 2 decrements, the final value becomes what? 3, right? So this is how, okay, you can use self, okay, to work with attributes and methods of a class, okay, through object. Okay, so that's all for today, for this session. Okay, thank you everyone for joining today's session.